what Amerex does, and they have decided to focus on their new core competency in the nuclear area. So they're selling their industrial branches, and this just worked out perfectly for us, since it's right here in Tulsa, about 5 or 6 miles from our existing location, and will give us a second treatment, storage, and disposal facility, as well as about $5 million in new revenue. Oh. So it's perfect. Everything's just lined up for us.
That's great. The reason why I mentioned Tulsa is I'm actually got to be there for a funeral this weekend. I mean, wedding, and so. Just so happens to be serendipitous. Okay, Now, headquartered in New York City and administrative offices in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Amerex Group is a hazardous waste transportation and logistics firm with capabilities to provide emergency response to environmental emergencies. The company has multiple facilities, including hazardous waste treatment, storage, and disposal facility license under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, Part B, and trucking fleet to transport hazardous waste throughout the U.S. Is that about right?
That's correct.
Now, let me ask you, can you describe for the audience what Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 remediation means, and then how you play a part in those phases?
Okay. The Phase 1 is well, first let me preface it by saying that Phase 1s are not a large part of our business, nor is Phase 2 or Phase 3. These are a engineering and design company areas of expertise. Okay. But the Phase 1 is an initial analysis, walkthrough, examination of history, spill records, fire department records, to give you an indication of whether there's any environmental impairment on a property. Phase 2 is a testing phase, and Phase 3 is a remediation phase.
Okay, and where do you come? And then where do you come in? Excuse me. Afterwards, I just don't understand. You said emergency response to environmental emergencies.
Correct. We do emergency response mainly in response to things like highway accidents, where there might be a hazardous cargo that has tipped over, or almost any time a truck flips over, and it happens hundreds, if not thousands, times a day, that there's almost always a diesel spill. And the diesel fuel, they carry 400 gallons at a time, could be released into the soil. And that's where, and I guess in a sense we do a Phase 1, 2, 3, but we kind of do them all at once, and, one after the other, because it's well, by definition, it's an emergency response and has to be addressed quickly.
Okay.
So that is a good part of our business. We work for one of the largest trucking companies in the world. And we have a contract with them for all of their highway mishaps. We work in transportation and logistics for Walmart and several other large companies, and for many industrial companies that in the manufacturing process produce waste streams that might be considered hazardous.
Now, I don't understand this acquisition. Maybe you just walked into the right place, right time with the due diligence deal that you're doing. It seems to me that nuclear is going to be bigger and bigger, and why would this company be looking to exit out of the waste disposal for it?
Oh, no, they are focusing on the waste disposal for nuclear.
Oh, excuse me, okay.
And then abandoning or refocusing away from what I refer to as the industrial side, which is non-nuclear.
Okay.
More chemicals, acids, bases, diesel, and the like. So that's what we focus on.
Excuse me. Okay. Would you say that this is a mature market, or is it still developing? Is it growing? Tell me about the market.
It's a mature market. The industry was birthed in the 70s with the inception of the EPA. During the first 10 years up until the early 80s, not too much happened in the industry, But during the mid-'80s, there was a wealth of environmental legislation. That's when the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, the Toxic Substances Control Act, the HERA, and all of these laws came into effect. Superfund, CERCLA, and to tell you the truth, the industry was not in place at that time to be able to respond for the demand for compliance with these regulations. So there were about 500 environmental engineering companies in the early 80s, and by the late 80s, by 87, there were 5,000. So the industry sprung up, went through a asymptotic growth phase, double-digit growth, up until the economic downturn in the early 90s, about 92, 93. The industry, I think it was a combination of the economics as well as the industry matured. There was finally the supply caught up with demand. There began consolidation, fragmentation, and a lot of fallout of some of the weaker players. And today there's about 3,400 companies that do what we do.